Hello everyone. So today I will be talking about a topic that I've been meaning to discuss, but I wasn't quite sure how to go about it. Long story short, I was at work the other day and during break something occurred to me, and that is the idea of drawing people and whether it is important as to how accurate a picture is or a drawing. And it occurred to me because in all of the years I've been working as a portrait artist for a theme park, I noticed that one of the things that people are either curious or make a big deal of whether it's going to look like them. Now obviously it's not really meant to be a photorealistic depiction, but rather an interpretation. And it occurred to me of whether photos work the same way. And I ask this because we used to have a policy where we're not allowed to draw from photos. And one of the reasons is that there's a lot of things to consider when you're trying to interpret from a photo. And a photo, it being minuscule, it obscures the perspective and the lighting. And I realized that I think it's much deeper than just that. I think it's the way a photo in of itself works like a picture too. Because have you ever wondered whether or how a photo doesn't really look like you, or that it's only capturing your bad side? Well, portraiture works the same way. And so I'm going to explain why this is a big deal, and that this is something that's not often addressed when it comes to people being depicted in drawings. In my experience in drawing people, I noticed that sometimes people often look at themselves differently than how the artist looks at them. Meaning that if someone is not fully aware of certain nuances to their face, or if they're like hyper aware and they want to make sure that every aspect of their face is being captured, some people don't really care, and sometimes they rely on certain accessories that they're known for. So another thing I noticed that is we allow the guest to leave their hat on or their glasses because we understand that some people representation relies heavily on what they're known for. So to me, this is also overlaps into an issue of representation. Do photos and or drawings of people fully represent what they think they look like? Because a representation by its definition is not synonymous with the actuality of a person, but rather I like to look at my job both as a portrait artist and also someone who occasionally commissions to do portraits as an interpretation or a representation. It's not meant to document people for what they actually look like. In fact, even documentations themselves are often put into question when it comes to like forensics or revising history or something like that. In fact, Frederick Douglass was once famous for his mugshots and was once said that he praised the invention of the camera and photography because for the first time, African Americans are finally going to be represented for what they actually look like and who they actually are as people. But of course, later on, photography became another art form, and even that remains to an issue of today because photography in of themselves are also a way to capture a certain representation of people, and it's not necessarily going to be how people see themselves. So it could still be manipulated in that sense. That is why I think when it comes to representing people in art form, to me it's just mere representation. It's not the same as how we as people with human eyes actually see them. In fact, I can go even further and say, even with our own eyes, we look at people sometimes surprisingly differently than how people look at themselves. It also plays into our memory. We may not remember someone compared to how other people remember them, because that's also based on impression, the amount of time we spent with them, how we know them, and that affects how we see them. At the end of the day, when it comes to drawing people, I'm sometimes asked if I am going to make it look like them, or if it's going to be accurate, or sometimes people are chill and they understand that it's based on interpretation. But for those who ask me if it's going to look like them, maybe they're just kidding around. My usual answer is that I'm just here to capture their essence. And you are going to hear artists who say that they're just there to capture their essence. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what I feel like as an artist am meant to do. This kind of idea of the essence behind an art form is actually nothing new. In fact, the Frankfurt philosopher Walter Benjamin, he's known to propose the idea that the art piece itself has a certain aura or an essence to it that's not the same as a mere copy. Walter Benjamin lived at a time when the assembly line was new and that art is being produced in copies as opposed to being handmade or just crafted as the original. And so it started sparking a debate as to whether copies of an art form is still considered art. And so he thought that art has something special in it when it's being made by itself on its own, and that copies are not the same. Nowadays, now that we have digital art, that changes everything, because you could create something on a computer, and so that begs the question, well, is this real art? But I think Walter Benjamin was onto something. I personally don't think he was trying to say that copies are fake, but rather there's a certain essence to be made, whether it's digital or not digital. And maybe that's my interpretation. I don't know. You could look up Walter Benjamin and read his theories and see what you think. But to me, I read it as that he's trying to maintain the integrity of art, and that we should kind of take it seriously and consider the amount of effort and hard work that artists put into their work, and that copies are just copies. It doesn't mean it's not important. But I think we tend to forget that art that's being made by the artist has a certain context behind it. There is a history behind it. There's meaning behind it. And just as the same as drawing people, it may not be a perfect depiction or not how they look at themselves, but it is a form of interpretation, and there is an essence to it that perhaps they can connect with, if that makes any sense. So those are my thoughts on drawing people. Let me know what you think in the comments, and perhaps this is something that I will continue to ponder about. But for now, I do think that portraiture remains to be something valuable. To me, it's not a matter of whether it looks exactly like a person or not, but I think that capturing the essence of the subject matter, what it comes down to. So let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time on another art vlog.